So, Kyle, if I read into that correctly, the offensive line has been the one unit on either side of the ball that's been disappointing, a consistent disappointment for probably 3 to 4 years.
Yes, yes.
And people aren't necessarily satisfied with what they're seeing in terms of personnel being addressed through the transfer portal or through the players that have been signed in the 22 class to date.
Yes, there is not. I would say satisfaction is a nice way of putting it. Unhappiness is a better way of probably putting it, and we could go further than that. The offensive line, and I hate discussing, or not discussing, but just speaking about individual players in non-constructive criticism manners, and so I try very hard to do that. But you're speaking about a unit here. No other unit across the football team has to be more in sync with each other and has to be producing as a unit as opposed to an individual. You have to take care of your individual responsibilities, yes, but you have to be working together more than any other unit, I would argue.
Yep.
And that's been the thing that's plagued Auburn. You know, we had, in my opinion, one of the best quarterbacks in college football, and I know that's a hot take, in Bo Nix, and we got him hurt. And I don't care if you're Spencer Rattler. I don't care if you're Caleb Williams. I don't care if Tom Brady comes back. If you can't block for him, it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. And so we've got to figure out what the issue is. Is it the dynamic of who's playing together on that line, who the starters are the different units? Or is it really we just need a fresh start? Auburn is returning two, I believe, if I have that number correctly, of their ones from last, Nick Brahms and Austin Troxell. I think those are probably two ones to carry over if you are looking for a restart on offensive line. So I am happy to have them returning here. And I'm always sad to see other players leave. And we've had some offensive linemen that were starting this year or backups decide to move off. But I think it is time for a restart there. And football is a game of inches. If you can't win that inch, you're not going to win the football game, much less a championship.
Staying on the offensive side, there was a wide receiver class at Auburn, I would say 2 to 3 years ago, that was much heralded. The production was decent last year, but again, it all ties together. If the quarterback can't get the ball to the wide receivers, then they're the most dependent players on the field. They need everything else to work to get the ball in their hands. And then if the quarterback's on his backside, then he can't operate effectively either. So your thoughts about the wide receiver position and how it sets up going into spring practice?
I think I've already I said that early, just hinting at it. Who's going to be the guy? Cedric Jackson, Bo Jackson's nephew, is there. He would be probably our most consistent, and he's been inconsistent at times, but he's also one of my favorite players. I love players with a good story, and obviously how much better can your story be if you're the nephew of Bo Jackson? But he's also had some shining moments. If it's not for him and TJ Finley and Georgia State, Auburn's football schedule is looking much worse. So I would say that he is coming back and staying for this extra year is going to be another, kind of like we were talking about offensive line, helps you get over the hump to the next cycle. But really, Auburn needs someone within this recruiting cycle that they just picked up to step up. You know, there's a lot of people that like the 3-star Jay Fair, I think, as a speed guy. I think what Auburn did was they kind of went out and got 3 different types of wide receivers, a kind of a taller one, a speed guy, and then kind of your all-around wide receiver, giving them several different options. Gone are the days of Seth Williams, Anthony Schwartz, Elijah Stove. We could have really used them this past year, but you can't fault a guy like Anthony Schwartz for going to the draft and getting drafted as high as he did. I think Seth Williams, had he chose to stay this year, he would have benefited. Auburn would have benefited. Elijah Stove, he was basically like 50 years old. He had been around forever. So I don't fault him for wanting to go off and try something else. But wide receiver is another area. As much as we, lament and talk about the offensive line play, when they do get the job done, your wide receivers have to catch the ball. And they were dropping balls. They were missed a lot. That's the biggest thing for me, is how many times I watched before the Cornelius Williams firing, how often our wide receivers were offsides lining up. That's step number 1. That can't happen. And so that's why that fire in hindsight makes sense to me. So as you can tell, I've jumped around a lot on the wide receiver topic there. There's a lot of convoluted issues to be addressed, and hopefully it's something, the main takeaway would be someone needs to step up, whether it's Cedric Jackson this year, or it's one of these new ones coming in and say, I'm the guy, send your attention to me defenses, and then it opens up for everybody else.
Jackson caught 40 last year and
Mm-hmm.
a touchdown reception as well. Kobe Hudson, 44 catches, 4 touchdowns as well. Got Kyle Loomis on the line, E2C Network right here on YouTube for all your Auburn needs across the board. And we'll hit a position as well that is a bit shaky, but has a proud history, and that's in the secondary.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the secondary has definitely become one of Auburn's shining things in the last couple of years. And the oddest thing about this, just taking a few steps back to Coach Malzahn, if you had asked me, would Auburn become DBU or at least have a case for that during Coach Malzahn's time, I would have laughed at you. But ironically, that's what he did. I mean, he shocked the world, put Noah Igbenogany in the first round. I believe Roger McCreary should go in the first round and will go in the first round, if not very high in it. And there's been several cases of even ones that weren't drafted are now on defensive rosters on NFL teams. You look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers; they've got 2 right now, in Carlton Davis and Javaris Davis, I believe. The defensive backs history at Auburn as of late has been very, very good, and you can give a lot of that to Kevin Steele, the former defensive coordinator, which is why I think a lot of people were excited about having Derek Mason, because he's a defensive back guy. You would expect him to, just be salivating at what he had to work with at Auburn. With you losing Roger McCreary this year, it really begs another similar question as the wide receiver. Who's going to be the guy to step up for Auburn this year and be the lockdown corner or a lockdown safety? You've got several players that could do that. Jalen Simpson's one of those. He's a bit young, has made a few mistakes, but he's shown a lot of promise and talent if he can stay healthy. And then they had picked up a pretty good defensive back recruiting class in the early signing period. So while it is a little rocky and it was susceptible to getting beat a lot this year, we all remember the Mississippi State game. I was there. That was unfortunate, and that was very painful to watch. It has a lot of promise. So it's not one of these situations like offensive line where you're just kind of throwing your hands up and like, we got to figure something out. There's a route to success with defensive backs, and I like still where we're sitting at, despite it being a bit of a disappointment last year.
Kyle, the quarterback position. So Zach Calzada comes in. We talked about Bo Nix, and you touted him pretty highly. He's got this reputation as being an erratic player. I think they're a bit of an enigma. Good Bo, bad Bo became a bit of a slogan. I'm sure that you're more familiar with than I am even. So he's off to Oregon, and we know that on occasion he could just be dynamic beyond belief in terms of what he could create. And I certainly thought that he developed as a passer and decision maker during his time at Auburn. So regardless, he's off to Oregon. Zach Calzada, that everyone should be familiar with, coming in from Texas A&M. And it's interesting to see the quarterback influx just within the SEC Western Division. Is this basically going to be his job, or do you expect this to be a pretty wide open competition?
The way I've expressed to it on my channel and with our viewers there is this, and I made a video and plan to make some updates to this video throughout the off season. So we kind of started with what do we know now and what we should anticipate at this point. And then I will probably reassess that after A-Day, spring practice, and then probably as we get into the heat, literally here in the South, of fall practice, and start talking then. We'll have some real concrete stuff. As of this point, I'm willing to still give TJ Finley the chance because he has a leg up in terms of being here, knowing the system, even though the system is now changing as of this stream with Austin Davis leaving. He does have a familiarity, obviously, with his head coach being with him for a year, so you can't really discount that from him. Did I see enough from him this year to make me think he's the guy? Not necessarily, but he also didn't have as ample of an opportunity, and when he was given an opportunity, it was pretty much in the worst possible scenarios. And he made magic one time with the Georgia State game, but not really in any other circumstances. Zach Calzada comes in as experienced, and he's got one thing on his resume that no other quarterback at Auburn has right now, and that's a win over Alabama. And you know how important that is to us. Now, you can't make decisions on who starts based on that, but you got to respect a guy who does that, has that to his resume, and played hurt during the game. I think people forget that he came back after getting hurt in that game and beat the mighty Alabama Crimson Tide. Granted, it was at home, but still an impressive showing. I remember watching that. Is it his job to win? I think that's the easy way to go. And it wouldn't shock me in the least if that's the way the trajectory results, with him being the starter when we get to fall. But I'm still willing to put him and TJ Finley on even playing field at the moment. And that will probably change rapidly, whatever way that goes. You've also got Robbie Ashford, who came in. I don't think most people are expecting him to win the starting job, but he definitely is a very solid backup. There's one thing I'm not worried about, is the availability of talent at quarterback for Auburn, which is kind of odd to talk about because it's been the Bo show for the entire time. And now we've got at least serviceable options.
Absolutely. And you could consider that maybe a 1-for-1 trade. Robbie Ashford, a bit of a baseball player who's also a very athletic quarterback at Oregon, but untested coming in as well. Kyle Loomis, E2C Network, right here on YouTube for all your Auburn athletics and beyond athletics. Some great stories to tell there about the University of Auburn University, I should say. Kyle, we appreciate you stopping by. Thank you so much for the breakdown. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me. Just sit back and hold on to the roller coaster ride that is Auburn football. We appreciate it, and War Eagle.
All right, Kyle. Well,